Back in the day, Sega experimented with a lot of different types of technology. Online services, the Game Gear handheld, and lock-on technology, something that allowed two different game cartridges to connect and enhance one another. So if you had a Sonic & Knuckles cartridge and slipped a Sonic the Hedgehog 2 cartridge into that, once you booted up your Genesis, you weren't playing Sonic 2 anymore. You were playing Knuckles the Echidna in Sonic 2, allowing you to go through that original game as Knuckles, complete with all of his abilities from the newer games. This is actually something I didn't know about until late last year when I bought Sonic & Knuckles as a Genesis cartridge for a friend who has one of those original consoles. But if you don't own a Genesis and do own a Switch, you can now play that special game mode in the newest Sega Ages release. So, here is my review of Sega Ages Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Nintendo Switch. When it comes to gameplay, this is a 2D platformer with co-op elements, just like the original version of Sonic 2. But Sega Ages isn't the first time the Switch had the capability of playing Sonic the Hedgehog 2. The Sega Genesis Classics collection that released back in December 2018 also had access to Sonic 2, so we should compare the two different versions the Switch has access to. Outside of save states, the Genesis Classics version is pretty much just the vanilla Sonic 2, whereas Sega Ages actually added a pretty large amount of new content. Most prominently, the ability to play both the original Sonic 2 as well as the lock-on version, Knuckles in Sonic 2. The gameplay has also been enhanced with the ability to use the drop dash move from Sonic Mania. But because of how Knuckles' glide ability uses the face buttons on the controller, you can only use drop dash when playing the original version of the game with Sonic and Tails. Now, both of these games can be played in their original modes with nothing changed, as well as ring keep mode, letting you keep a significant amount of your rings upon being hit to make the game a little bit easier along with the save states. And once you beat each game, you can unlock the new Super Sonic and Super Knuckles modes that are exactly what they sound like. You start the game off being able to instantly transform into Super Sonic or Super Knuckles without having to gather the Chaos Emeralds first. Now, as far as game progression goes, if you're one of those people who's never played Sonic 2 before, your task is to go through several sets of 2D levels called zones, navigating through fast-paced environments and fighting off enemies and bosses as you move from one stage to the next. Your goal is to reach the final boss, but there is a certain amount of extra stuff you can do, like collecting 50 rings and going into checkpoints so you can gather the Chaos Emeralds and unlock the Super Sonic or Super Knuckles mode before you reach that final stage. Now, in terms of content and length, Drop Dash being added in didn't really shave down a lot of time off the initial adventures, so a single run through Sonic 2 or Knuckles in Sonic 2 is likely to take you at least an hour and a half to 2 hours. And if you want to unlock both Super Sonic and Super Knuckles mode or go through each campaign a single time, that's going to give you at least 4 hours, which is plenty for the asking price of $7.99. Now let's get back to our comparison with controls and presentation. The Sega Genesis Classics collection had a huge flaw in the form of input lag. No matter what game you were playing, including Sonic 2, there was a significant amount of input lag that made platforming very difficult. Thankfully, the Sega Ages version doesn't have any input lag at all, so it's a much smoother experience. When we get to presentation, the graphics aren't really any different between this version and the Sega Genesis Classics version. While the Classics collection does have a few more graphics options, the Sega Ages version gives you a lot, with different aspect ratios all the way up to full screen, as well as the scan lines and smoothing options to make it look a little bit different. As we dive into performance, we have a situation much better than the original Genesis version, but it does have some hiccups. There are occasional times when sound effects are skipped and muted, and some small frame drops and slowdown in a few areas. It's worth noting that the slowdown is more of a rare occurrence than anything else, as I've gone through the game 4 to 5 times so far and I've only had it happen to me once. I don't have anything else to say about presentation and performance, so let's go right into battery life. On the original model, Sega Ages Sonic 2 has a battery range of 5 hours and 6 minutes up to 7 hours and 18 minutes. On the Nintendo Switch Lite, it has a range of 5 hours and 16 minutes up to 7 hours and 21 minutes. And on the V2 or Redbox 2019 model, it has a range of 6 hours and 56 minutes up to 9 hours and 34 minutes. In conclusion, Sonic 2 returns to handhelds with its special Knuckles mode and some more extras packed in. Now, the downside, the game's got some small technical bugs with sound effects and slowdown, but with no input lag and all the extras here, it's a great buy for any fan of that original Genesis title. Reviews to Go rates Sega Ages Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Nintendo Switch a 9.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.